Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Kiernan, how are you?
I'm so happy. You know, we've done so many information-heavy episodes lately. This one's going to be just a fun romp through philosophy of airplane etiquette. That's the type of episode I can really settle into.
Settle into in that middle seat, that super comfortable. You're surrounded by two guys who didn't take a shower before the flight. I'm just imagining a WoW airline experience. Is that close? Did
brother. I mean, that's more reflective of my Spirit airline existence. We're going to talk, the ins and outs of what it's like when you're in that aisle seat, when you've got that horrible middle seat you're talking about, and that window seat. I feel like they each come with their own obligations and their own moral quandaries.
They do. I like to take the seats that have no moral quandaries.
What's one that? They just sit in the bathroom the whole time?
No, it's like
lock the door.
It's like 1A, you know?
Yeah. That is a very expensive seat, but you're right. You're paying to not have any moral quandaries.
Yeah. You sit by yourself, nobody on your left or your right. It's just you and the Delta flight attendants.
I mean, as ever, we're jumping far too early into the meat of the airplane etiquette conversation because we've got some important listener mail to get to.
So we opened up that the old mailbox there at outofofficepod@gmail.com, and we had an email from a listener named Zoe. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Zoe, thank you for writing in. I'm just going to read the letter verbatim here. I'm not a huge traveler. That's interesting. Weird podcast to choose to listen to, but I'm not a huge traveler, but I hope to soon plan my first international trip. Good. We like that. Good.
Where was your first international trip?
My first international trip was to Bermuda.
Mine was
in
Prague.
college. Prague?
Yeah, also in college.
How old were you?
I was 19.
That was before you graduated college.
Yes, before one of my many degrees and diplomas.
What brought you to Prague? That's not a normal spring break area.
No, a friend of mine offered to take me with him, and I said, I'll go with you. Yep.
Oh, so it was a paid for Prague?
It was, yeah, I know. It was a gift. It was a gift. It was a gift vacation, and I gladly took it.
Boy, I'd like to make your friends. Well, I went to Bermuda, and I remember it was in the lovely month of March, which I think when anyone with any worldly knowledge understands that Bermuda is actually right next to the Carolinas. And so I was expecting, like tropical heat. And we got there, and it was essentially the same temperature as Boston. So
there is nothing more disappointing if it begins with basically the same as Boston.
No, but Ryan, I love Boston. Beautiful. What I do like about Bermuda, especially though, is Bermuda formal, which is you wear knee socks, shorts, and blazers. That is a great look. I think it's a look that's very much in keeping with sort of my personality. Knee socks and a blazer at the same time. That is beautiful.
That's what I wear on the beach generally, knee socks and a blazer.
Well, we're very pale. All right, back to the letter. Not a huge traveler, but I hope to soon plan my first international trip. What would be your top 3 suggestions for places to visit? In other words, if you are only able to travel to 3 places in the world during your lifetime, what would they be?
Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Akron.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny you get to that, Ryan, because my first instinct was to include an American national park. I was going to say, maybe Denali in Alaska and maybe the Grand Canyon. But Zoe specifically asks for international trips.
She does.
And so I went back, and so it looks like each of us chose one European, one spot in the Americas, and then I chose an Asian destination, and you also chose an Asian destination. So slight difference, but maybe we'll just go 1-1-1. And so my first pick was Rome, the Eternal City. So much wonderful history there. You get to soak in the ruins, the foundation of Western culture. You get to go see beautiful artworks, eat amazing food, maybe have a fly-by-night romance. I mean, I think that's what Zoe's looking for.
We don't know that Zoe is a practicing Catholic, and I know that all of your travel suggestions begin with, like, where would Pope Francis II have wanted to, go?
You always choose an unpredictable pope. That's still 2 popes ago. I don't know why you always go back to him.
I just want to think it was a good
Well,
pope.
let's throw in John the 23rd. He was a good one.
Yeah, so perhaps if Zoe is not a huge Catholic and doesn't want to go and tour Catholic places for days and days at a time, she might want to visit I think one of the most beautiful cities in Europe, if not the entire world, and that is Paris. I mean, I can't recommend Paris highly enough. If you're only going to go to a handful of international cities in your life, Paris has got the food, it's got the art, it is just a phenomenal place just to walk around and just constantly just find new gorgeous things. I can't think of anybody I know who's been to Paris enough.
There's also the beautiful people. Paris, a lot of beautiful people. However,
and many of them are not celibate, unlike Rome, where it's the celibate nation.
I mean, okay, there's a difference between taking a vow of celibacy and actually being celibate. Okay?
We have learned that, yeah.
So it's Rome, very sexy.
Multiple indictments can't be wrong.
Okay, so Paris, I absolutely considered, Ryan, but I'll tell you why it didn't make my list, because I find Paris to be a very it's a very intimidating place to be one of your first international experiences. There's a heavy sort of a stereotype against people who don't speak French, and they give you. I've
only found that to be a stereotype. Every time I've been to Paris, people have been incredibly nice to me. I have made friends. I have gone out. I think that is a hurtful stereotype. The French have been friends with America from the very beginning. We're basically cousins.
What? Because of the Statue of Liberty that makes you friends? That doesn't seem right.
Lafayette.
That's a fair point. And our revolution succeeded, unlike theirs. Right.
And would not have succeeded if it wasn't for France.
So what I just feel like, in my experience, basically, it's if there's a French person over the age of like 50 and you go and speak English without even attempting French, there's a heavy look of disdain. Though I do find that you are correct that often the younger generation, and by the way, I'm ashamed I don't know French. Are you
only approaching 50-year-olds on the street? You're at a wine bar and you're like, hey, there's a 50-year-old who I'm going to go. I know that you're an old soul, Kiernan, but live a little.
My demographic tends to be 65 and over.
It's true.
As is borne out by the number of podcast downloads that we get. All right. So number 1 for me, Rome. Number 1 for Ryan, Paris. My number 2 it comes from my recent honeymoon. And that is the Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu in Peru. I think that this is a much more adventurous trip, but it's also taking you to one of the wonders of the world. I mean, Machu Picchu, and it involves hiking and awesome food. So many sites that are going to take you out into nature. I was really trying to get you out of a city. Ryan has chosen all cities. I don't think that's right. I happen to think that there's something restorative about connecting with beautiful Andes, and also you get to connect with llamas. And I think that getting to see some wildlife that you've never seen before here in the U.S. A llama, you could take a ride. Maybe you'll get a little spit on you. You could take pictures next to it. You can buy a sweater made out of llama wool. I mean, this is the essence of what it means to go out and explore. You're not going to get that in Paris or Rome.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to see a llama in Paris, I'm sure it can be arranged. Okay, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I bet there's a service that brings llamas around. But...
I mean, I think some of the French who choose not to save are certainly as woolly as a llama. Wait, you're just engaging in stereotypes now.
I love the French. And look, Peru is on my list. You have sold me on going, and I'm going. When I go to Peru, I'm going to sit down with you. You're going to give me the play-by-play of everything to do. So I am 100% sold on this idea. But I do, I feel like you told Zoe she had to go to Rome because it's, an easy trip to make. But go to Peru and like walk the mountains. I think that you're not very coherent here on the advice you're giving Zoe on the.
Well, no, I'm giving one option that is, relaxing in a direct flight, and then I'm giving her a more robust experience. Get out there, sort of in the spirit of Theodore Roosevelt. I want her to put on, to quote Theodore Roosevelt, her worst clothes. And when you go to Peru, put on your worst clothes. I want you trudging through the mud, trudging up those Inca steps, and then when you reach the top of Machu Picchu and that light shines down upon you, you are just going to be so blown away. You're going to say, now I know what it is to truly escape the bounds of the United States.
Well, I think that another direct flight that Zoe could take down south would be to go to Mexico City.
Oh, God.
And I'm not going to go into too much detail.
No, you can go, Zoe, go listen to that episode. Yeah. It's fine.
One of the best episodes we've ever done. That's my 12 favorite things to do in Mexico City. Highly recommended. I think of it, in fact, I think of it often as I think of Paris. So that's a pretty big endorsement.
I will say, Zoe, if you enjoy a museum, I think Mexico City, one of the greatest unsung museum capitals of the world. It's absolutely extraordinary. So I'm not going to begrudge you that, Ryan. And you are absolutely right. Mexico City is a wonderful trip, and it scratches that Catholic itch that made me send Zoe to Rome at first. So
yeah, are there Catholics in Peru? I'm sure you found them.
That fair point.
How did you go to mass if there weren't?
Yeah, but if you go to Mexico City, you're going to visit Our Lady of Guadalupe, and you'll actually get to see the scene of a miracle. I mean, that's, if you go Rome to Mexico City, that's
a lot of miracles.
You're 2 steps towards heaven. All right, Ryan. And my final one, I'm heading back to the city. And this is a city that I would say the experience of someone who hasn't traveled far and wide out of the United States. You will rarely find a city that's going to open your eyes more than Tokyo. Tokyo is such an overwhelming experience for people who have only been to American cities. It's just tons and tons of people, amazing ramen places in like bus stops and train stations. It's got rich history around the Imperial Palace. It's a wonderful city to walk through. It has some of that like vibrant urban life that I love about New York City and some of the great American cities. But I do think it's it's an experience like no other. And of course, it is an adventure because you're going to a place where you can't read signs. And that is, I think that's an awesome experience for anyone who's traveling internationally. I remember the first time I saw Cyrillic signs was when I went to Ukraine. And that was the first time that I went, oh my God, now I truly have to rely on my instincts and the goodwill of other people.
Ukraine, by the way, not on your list for some reason.
No, Ukraine didn't make the list, but though I did consider it.
Lviv, you did not.
I absolutely did. Lviv is a wonderful.
Oh my God,
is a wonderful city. But I thought top 3. It's not really top 3. It might be top.
Poor Zoe. I can imagine 15. If trying to send her to Warsaw or some horrible place.
Warsaw is wonderful. What is it? Have you been to Warsaw?
I have been. I can talk all about Warsaw. I've been to Warsaw.
We're gonna do a spotlight on a lot of these places. Warsaw, I will defend to the absolute death.
I will not. Although you might have to if you're in Warsaw, if you're just randomly walking the streets.
I remember Warsaw, one of the best bed and breakfasts I've ever had. It was absolutely everything. Homemade jams, homemade breads, and it was as cheap as sin. So, and it also a good Catholic country. It's actually, you know what? Maybe I hit Tokyo. Maybe this should be Warsaw. Ryan, I'm gonna look into that. Why don't you tell us your last?
So I was sticking with sort of your format here, and I was thinking about Asia, and I haven't been to nearly as many cities in Asia as I need to go to. So I decided to pick Istanbul, which I think is an interesting city because it sort of straddles 2 continents. It's incredibly international. It's beautiful. There is that sort of like the foreignness of seeing things in a language that is definitely not yours. There's beautiful things like the call to prayer, the Blue Mosque. The food is incredible. The people are very friendly. It's unfortunate the government has gotten a little reactionary, and we heard some kind of wild stories about that. But I think it's a safe and fascinating city to go to, and it will definitely push you a little outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, as you said, it actually physically straddles, right? There's a river that runs through it, and you will have to walk bridges between the continents.
Yeah, I took an Uber from Europe to Asia. Not something that you think that'd be more than $6, but it's that close.
Well, Zoe, you've got your work cut out for you. For me, Rome, Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu in Peru, and Tokyo. From Ryan, Paris, Mexico City, and Istanbul. He's keeping you in the cities. So, as always, we welcome all listener questions. This was a great question. I thought led to a great conversation. And watch out for spotlights on some of these favorite destinations in the future.
All right. Well, thank you, Zoe, for the email. And I think, Kiernan, that it's probably time to take off.
Let's take off. Tell the cabin crew.
Cabin crew?
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right. We are on the plane right now. We've taken off. And so we're going to talk about airplane etiquette today. So it's incredibly appropriate that we're on this flight. Kiernan, do you have a...
We're not pretend. What is this? We don't pretend we're recording on a plane. This is you're adding. You've waited for our 26th episode to add this element that we're on some Delta flight.
This is the first. Delta's not a sponsor yet. Insert flight brand here.
All right, Ryan. The way I want to tackle this is I have 10 moral quandaries that I'm sure each of us have faced on our many flights. And I want to take a few minutes each for us to weigh in on these top 10 moral airplane etiquette quandaries. So I will read the question, and then we can each weigh in and debate it out.
All right, that sounds good.
All right, question 1. Who gets the armrest?
Oh, God.
Highly debated territory.
This is highly debated, yeah.
I mean, this is like, the West Bank of your average continental flight.
Can I just tell you how I've always assumed?
Yeah.
If you're on the window, you get the armrest by the window.
Sure.
If you're middle seat, you actually have access to both armrests.
Right.
And if you are aisle, you have the armrest on the aisle.
Okay, well, I definitely agree that the middle seat doesn't get access to the aisle or the window. But you're basically saying that the middle seat deserves the armrest because they have the most miserable seat. They're getting the heat
such
and
a
the
miserable
smell.
experience.
Yeah. So I happen to think of a flight as a little bit more Lord of the Flies situation, where it's every man or woman for him or herself, and I think that it is strongest gets the spoils. I think that if you are first to that armrest and you plant that arm down, and for all intents and purposes, if the middle seat's on my left and I get my left arm on there, that arm is dead to me for the rest of the flight. It is resting. It won't come up to get the food, to get the drink, because that is real estate. And once you give up real estate, those squatter rights, that person's going to edge right in.
Yeah, I mean, if it's another sort of white man around my age, I will crowd in there like nobody's business.
Okay.
That is my is my armrest.
Okay, so you take into account the type of person who's sitting next to you.
Yeah,
that's a fair point. I hadn't thought about that. So if it's an elderly or infirm or child, these are people who deserve the armrest.
Yeah, but if it's like a 25-year-old tech bro, I am taking that armrest, no doubt.
Now, I guess a secondary part of this question that I hadn't considered is, what do you feel about if they've claimed the armrest? Do you ever sort of edge in or just rest the elbow to indicate to them, hey, this is like a half and half situation?
Sometimes I wait for folks to go to the bathroom, and then I will go ahead and just do a sneak attack, like while they're gone, I'll put my tray down, I'll move my seat over, my arm will just kind of fall into their seat. Yeah, I will.
That's good. I like that. That doesn't work if you're the aisle, though, because you've got to get up and let them sit down, unless you just immediately slam in.
Yeah, you'd have to be pretty aggressive. I don't like the aisle seat, actually. It's one of my least favorite places to sit.
I completely, aisle is my absolute favorite. I like to be in control of the row. So I like to know these people can't go up, they can't go down unless the drawbridge of Kiernan P. Schmidt decides to lower.
Yeah, the older I get, the less I care about making people get up during a flight. 15 years ago, I was so like quiet and shy, and if I had to pee, I would just wait for 6.5 hours, right? But now I'm just like waking people up. I'm like, excuse me,
Okay, so that actually gets to a good second question here, which is, when is it okay to wake the aisle person to let you out of the aisle? So this question assumes you're in the window or you're in the middle.
Right.
You've got to get up to go to the bathroom. You want to stretch your legs, but the person has fallen asleep.
Oh, that's the worst. Yeah, I mean, I think that it depends how long the flight is. You know, if you're on like a a New York to Boston flight, you don't get to sleep.
You
on
can
that.
hold it. Yeah.
No, I think you can just get up if you want.
Oh, see, now I think that the onus is on you to hold it. I mean, that's an hour flight. It's not the aisle person's responsibility to get up. Why
but
you
it's
drink all that water?
No one's getting comfortable anyway. So who are we kidding? Like you're barely gonna get to sit down the whole flight. So no, I think that's fine. If it's a flight that's got a little more of like a length to it, you're gonna need to be allies with these people for hours and hours and hours. So you really got to play your cards right. You don't want to get things too awkward. You don't want to be that guy who's had too many glasses of that sweet Delta wine.
Delta getting some good shout outs here today.
Yeah.
What have you ever negotiated it before the plane even took off? You know, you're sitting down. You know, you have a 6 to 10 hour flight ahead of you, and you say to the person, "Hey, I just want to give you a heads up. I usually get up like once every 2 hours. Why don't you tell me what your schedule is for this plane ride? Are you doing movies? Are you sleeping?"
Well, this would mean that you would have to engage with the person. I think we're going to talk about this. This is a risky proposition, but especially that early in a flight.
But I think that you can wrap into the negotiations a no speaking clause. So we're talking about the ground rules of our row together.
Yeah.
We're negotiating out any points of contention, and then silence.
How do you negotiate the silence, though?
I think
you've already opened up the idea of conversation. No one should even know when they're sitting next to me what language I speak or understand is. You know,
okay.
If they do, I've failed miserably in my task.
That's fair. Okay, we're jumping ahead to a future question about speaking to your seatmate. So let's not get there quite yet. So, I think there is an argument to be made that the person, by selecting the aisle seat, has the responsibility to let others out. I don't think that they inherently deserve to have this power over you to make you hold it.
No, it's like if you are in the exit row, you have the authority to to do.
You have agreed to help in the case of an emergency. You'd made an oral yes, saying that you would agree to that.
Yeah, you have to. It's not enough just to nod. You have to actually say yes.
An oral yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know that's the standard you use too when you bring people home, right?
It is, exactly. Yeah.
So I think that person may bear the responsibility. Final subsidiary question to this. If you're on the inside and you need to get out and that person is dozing or asleep, what is the approach? Do you do a shoulder poke? Do you kind of hit the arm a little bit? How do you wake that person up, let them know, hey, somebody's got to go to the bathroom here?
I've done a shoulder. I've done definitely the shoulder tap.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't poke and I wouldn't squeeze. Like a tap.
Definitely no squeeze. That's far much.
Who am I, Joe Biden? No, I'm.
So you're doing a pat.
I'm doing a pat. Yeah.
See, now
a full bit. I'm not even my hand is open.
I can see you're doing an open palm. That's a fair amount of contact. You're gripping almost the full fingers and palm.
But I'm mostly just doing on the fingers. It's just to show that I'm not a threat.
See,
by open hands.
I'm doing less. I'm doing much more of a poke, almost a jab. And often I'm using a pencil or a pen.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I am.
You're not making any friends in these flights.
What? I'm not trying to make friends, all right? I'm trying to get up and go to the bathroom. No, but I think that it's much nicer for that person to know that my human flesh has not touched them, and that a little pen tap, tap, tap is just light enough to feel that they're not being sort of crowded in on. But it's enough to get their attention, especially with a light doze. I think your aggressive padding, that might be far too forward.
Have you ever just turned the overhead light on and just pointed it in their face until they woke up and then been like, oh, I'm sorry, I need to pee? But don't act like you did the light situation.
I haven't done that, but that's a very clever ruse. All right, so moving on to question number 3. Is it moral to put the seat back?
This is the dumbest question because of course it is. It wouldn't be an option if you weren't supposed to do it. And I paid for that seat. And Lord knows how few inches you have to really relax. Putting the seat back, I think, is totally morally fine. And generally you have to do it because the person in front of you does it, and then it's just like
domino
effect. And pretty soon the plane is another 40 feet long. Now, sometimes you'll have a kid behind you who's never been on a flight before, and they have these little legs, and they will just kick your seat for, they have unbelievable energy. They're running a marathon behind you. They think they have to keep pedaling like the Flintstones to get you there. And that is, to me, that requires, I think, even more leaning back. You just got to lean lean into it. Yeah.
You got to lean into the lean back.
Lean into the lean back.
I also think that requires some dirty looks at the parents.
Oh, yeah. Parents on flights, they forget they have children.
Now, I will say a couple things about the lean back. The first is the person who sits behind me is very lucky because as it happens, I feel much more comfortable at the nearly 90-degree angle of the upright seat. So I rarely lean back. Mostly because I don't want to. The lumbar just doesn't feel good to me when I lean back. However, there are certainly planes where the TV screen gets so close to my face when the person behind me leans back. But
you're like what? You're like 5'7", 5'8", and I'm
6'2".
Oh, okay. Well,
What, 5'7", 5'? What do you think? I have those little legs to kick in the back of your chair?
You look a little more petite,
No,
so,
5'6", 5'7". That's normal height.
So you're a regularly sized person. So
I'm larger than normal.
Yeah. So you lean back.
It's tight.
How do you not lean back?
I don't like it. But yes, I'm very crowded. Now, I do want to say, I think that the pace of the lean back is the most important part of this. Because I think that if I agree with you that the person has the right to lean back. I don't know if you've heard of that mechanism that you can bring on a plane jam it into a seat to stop the lean back.
They sell it on Fox News.
Yeah, that I do not think is moral. Okay, that person paid for a seat that leans back. You have a problem with it, you talk to the airline about the seat that they invested and created. Okay? That person has the right to lean back. However,
does anyone ever use those? I feel like it's probably against the terms of service to do that, right?
We're gonna look into that. We'll do a recalculate on that. Let me take a note on that. All right, recalculate. I think I have been in places where I think there is a very respectable lean back pace where the person kind of makes a show of putting their hand on the button and then just kind of a slow lean back. I think you can really hear it in my voice, kind of the slow lean back.
Yeah, it's especially if food or drink have been served.
Absolutely.
Because you can cause a major accident in the back.
There should be no leaning back after during the period where people have food and drink on their tables.
I think that's probably fair.
However,
I hate when people lean back so much, and especially if you're in like a plane that's really tight.
Yeah.
And your laptop, you can't even sit it anywhere because it like hits against that stupid TV.
It's a nightmare.
Nightmare.
And I don't like when the pace is too fast because for people like you and I, we have very long femurs, right? We got big legs, long femurs. And yes, we're willing to let you get crowded. It is your right. But when you get somebody who does the lean back,
my shins are bleeding halfway through the flight. Yeah.
And, I have actually gotten to the point where somebody came back so fast I yelped. I yelped involuntarily. I wasn't being dramatic, but I gave a little, because they hit my knee so hard.
I am totally, I've never actually been physically injured, but I think that I've gotten close. Yeah.
All right. Well, we seem to be in vague agreement, but the pace is the main thing I want to underline there. All right. Question 4. What are appropriate foods to bring on a plane?
Oh my gosh. A bottle of water,
Bottle of water, that's it?
They're going to serve you food on the plane. I'm sorry. There's nothing worse than
Southwest.
There's nothing worse than when you sit down next to someone and you just take off, and all of a sudden they pull out like the baby back ribs that who knows where they brought them. They're mysteriously wrapped. Like, how did those even get through security?
All right. So we definitely, I'm sure that we share the opinion. Smelly foods are out.
Pre-wrapped, maybe like granola bars are appropriate.
Yeah, there's no tuna, no very smelly food of any sort. However, now you've pointed to like you brought up ribs. I think what you're getting to there is like kind of messy foods.
Yeah, you don't want messy foods.
Now I think that it may be okay to bring on messy foods, and I'm going to give you an example. I have several times brought onto a plane a banana, okay? And I know that when I took that banana out, my neighbors in the row gave me a look like, what is this kid going to do with that peel? As it browns and it rots in the seat, and it's going to get gross.
You're going to put it right in your seat back in your little pocket there, right?
No,
just leave it there for the next flight.
I'm sure that's what they think I'm going to do.
Right. No,
but what I do when I bring a banana is I also pack a Ziploc bag.
My God.
Okay, I pack a Ziploc bag. This is totally true, and I
believe that it's true.
I eat the banana. And then I make quite a show of opening my bag, and I pull out the Ziploc bag, and I kind of give a little left and right side eye, like, you seeing this? And I put the banana peel in the bag, and I seal it nice and tight, get that air out of there.
Yeah.
And I let them just soak in the fact for a minute that they have a neighbor considerate enough
That's pretty amazing.
that this banana peel, and I like to think that they go after the flight to the people they were traveling with and they go,
They don't.
let me tell you, I was sitting with a guy. This guy is three things. He's an honest man, a man of the people, salt of the earth. He brought a Ziploc bag just to hold his banana peel. And I'll give you a quick traveler's tip if you're interested in pulling this off, but you didn't think to pack that Ziploc bag. Vomit bag.
Oh, the vomit bag is great for so many things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The vomit bag is your own trash can. It's waxed, so it's not going to it's not going to drip out. Fantastic.
The vomit bag is great. Everybody should use it at least once a flight.
Actually, the myriad uses of the vomit is a great idea for a future episode. I'm taking note of that one. All right, so we agree on foods. Our fifth question: you're in the aisle seat. How do you respond when a non-aisle person asks you to get up for them to go to the bathroom, even though the seatbelt sign is on?
Easy. It's the same scenario as if the seatbelt sign wasn't on. I'm not working to enforce the rules of air travel. I'm not the U.S. Marshal on the flight.
For what it's worth, the FAA hasn't been doing a great job of enforcing those rules.
No,
either.
and I know that you're actually even allowed to go to the bathroom many times during a flight when the seatbelt sign is on. It's what, you're shaking your head no?
This is chaos. This is absolute chaos. The pilot is in charge of this flight, and the pilot is saying, I'm looking at the instruments, I'm looking out at the air. It is not safe for you to get up from your seat. So if that person says to you, get up, it is my right to say, you are putting me in danger.
You would not do
by
that.
asking me to get up.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, no, you know what? I'm like the hall monitor. I'm making sure that everybody on the flight is following the rules. And it is a rule that, do you think they install hundreds of those seatbelt lights for no reason?
I just imagine the horror that some listener will have one day when they realize they've sat next to you on a flight. And
they're sitting there, they're looking to the
chaos.
side, they hear my voice a little bit.
See
They go,
the banana.
I think I know this guy. Then he pulls out a banana in a Ziploc bag. They're like, oh, shit.
Oh, God.
I'm not going to be able to go to the bathroom this whole flight. Well, what I will do is I will give a look of protest. And then I will probably point up to the seat sign to say, oh, the belt sign's on, just in case they don't know, because maybe they want to make that decision. But if they...
you're just giving them a little mansplain. You got to be like, oh, FYI, the light is on, Look, Kiernan, if you had wanted to be a flight attendant, you could have gone for that role.
I'm aisle-splaining to them. and then if they still insist that I get up, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold on to my armrest like the flight's hitting some crazy turbulence,
dramatically as possible.
Exactly, and I will slowly get out of my seat while still kind of sitting just enough to let them by, and then instantly get back in the seat and buckle back.
That's like a Broadway get up, in the show.
That's exactly
like a partial stand.
No, I would never get up for somebody during a Broadway show.
Oh, that's a topic our listeners are not interested in, I promise you.
Tell your friends about last week's episode. It was really great. Okay, Ryan, moving on to the next moral quandary. I believe we're rounding number 6 here. This is a big one. This is a really big one.
Yeah.
Is it ever okay to chat with a stranger on a plane?
This is a tough one. I think that it's of course it's okay to do, and I've definitely done it. Like there have been times that I've been sat next to an incredibly attractive person and I wanted to know more about.
I've had that once. I've had that once before.
Yeah, that's a super rare occurrence though when you're flying Delta shuttles.
That's that amazing occurrence where you're waiting to board the flight, you're in the airport, and you look around, you notice this attractive person, you go, well, it doesn't matter. They're not going to be seated next to me. And then you see that person coming down the aisle, and you go, oh my God, they're coming down the aisle, but there's no way they're this person. Yeah. Also, what is horrible is if they're in your aisle, but there's a person in between you. You're like, we were so close. We were so close.
Yeah, that's never any fun. But look, the reality is my whole thing with talking to people on flights is the second you open that window to where they know, I think it's like the Overton window, right? The second they know that they're allowed to sort of have this conversation with you, you cannot withdraw that offer. I don't care if you put 2 headphones in, you put your eye mask in, you put your book.
Yep.
All of a sudden they think that, they can ask questions. What are you reading? What are you listening to? What do you, I'm like, I'm not here to be your entertainment guru.
I'm with you.
Flight.
Yeah, I think I like your rule a lot. They should not know what language I speak.
Unless they're attractive, and then they have to deal with me. No, I'm
So you do have the attractive caveat there, and I think that's a very hard thing. Even just broaching that is very difficult because, chances are that person doesn't find you that attractive. I mean,
it's almost for sure they're not interested in talking to you.
However,
because attractive people must be approached all the time by strangers.
Right. However, if they start to open that door, I'm not going to give the cold shoulder. I'm not going to put the earphones in. In fact, I might give them a nice big smile.
Yeah. I've done that. I've looked open to talking to someone who I wanted to talk to, and they began talking to me just because of my body language.
Yeah.
And,
I
I was reading, I'm always carrying something that makes me look really
You
really
love to carry a book.
Yeah.
Rarely read, but carry a book. And, I think, too, you and I kind of have airs that we enjoy a conversation. But on a plane, I don't. I don't enjoy a conversation. I just want to be left alone.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I find planes to be an amazing concentrate. Like it's like being in a capsule of concentration, and I can read for 4 hours without having to think about the internet. I can get actual long form work done. So I generally don't want to be disturbed.
How much long? I think that's the dream scenario. But how much long form work you getting done? No, you're right.
I've done a lot. I built a lot of decks on it. And you tell me, come on, half of shuttle flights are just kind of sad-looking men on their IBM PCs building PowerPoints.
I do. I love looking over shoulders of business people doing miserable PowerPoint decks. No, you're right. It is the ideal scenario is that it is a concentration capsule, and you're just surrounded by hundreds of other people's farts. Okay, so. We're not even going to get into farts because that's if we opened that door, but we all know that it happens.
I've never even heard of this thing. I'll Google it later.
It's a nightmare. I would recommend you not. Okay, moving on to the next question. Does the person seated next to the window automatically get to control the window shade?
This to me is a no-brainer. Of course they get to control it. This doesn't, and I've had people like say to me, "Oh, can you open the window? I want to see out." I'm like, "Oh, cool. You should have booked a window seat." That's why I'm in the window, and you're not. You're not. I'm sorry. I'm usually nice, and if it doesn't matter to me, I'll open it. But if it's like in the middle of the flight, I'm like, no, I don't want to open the window right now and look out at the clouds for
right.
4 hours.
Also, if it's sunny. The beating of the sun can be horrible for that.
I can feel my face aging from the horrible sun. Yeah.
So, I like your suggestion that maybe it should be codified that the miserable middle seat gets the armrest. I agree with you that the window seat, you get the view and you get control of the shade.
Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
I will say I rarely book window seats. However, I typically like the window open. So what I do is when I get in there, if the person's not sitting yet, I will usually open the window shade to where I want it to be, and I hope that they just don't notice. I will never ask.
Yeah, I've never asked in my entire life, but I know that people do, and I've been asked. What is the weirdest thing the person next to you has ever asked you? Because someone asked me once to not bite my nails.
Were you biting your nails?
Yeah, and she's like, I know this is probably, she was like, I know that this is probably something that you struggle with, but if you could just not bite your nails, it makes me nervous.
I mean, for what it's worth, I think that is a very fair thing for her to ask.
You think people can?
I wouldn't because I'm passive aggressive, and I would just stew and be angry. But those little nail bits are probably getting all over your seatmate.
Yeah. So instead, I just bit my nails as aggressively as I could for the remainder of the flight. I was like, "You want to see some nail biting?"
I really think the worst thing that I've been asked is just somebody's traveling with another person that they're not sitting with. I'm sitting in between them. That person comes up the aisle to have like a mid-flight chat, and they just kind of insist that they have it over me. And I haven't been actually asked to move, but they feel like that's like the polite way. Is just like, oh, we're just gonna chat. Do you mind if that person leans entirely over you so that we can have a chat because it's just so important? And by the way, we have to yell because of the plane noise. So we just hope you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's totally inappropriate. I would never have a conversation over someone on a flight.
Agreed.
That's kooky.
Agreed. All right, we got 3 more, Ryan. Do you wake a sleeping seatmate when the snacks and beverage service comes through?
Absolutely not. No, I don't even think that's an option, is it?
Well, I do. Sometimes I have had a flight attendant give the indication of like, hey, do you know if that person wants some drink and food?
How would I know that?
I just give a real like, I got no idea. I hold my hands up like I don't know that person. Maybe to your point, I act like I don't understand the question. But I agreed. I mean, let the flight attendant lean over and tap that person if they want. But I'm not getting involved. I think not getting involved is the best way to go.
I think that if you are asleep, you don't get that flight service. You just have to wait. Or
That's
you
right. You have forfeited the right to the drink and food.
If you see it coming down the aisle and you can't stay awake for 5 more minutes, you know what? You don't deserve that. You don't deserve that terrible, terrible, sad food you're about to get.
Oh no! Come on, JetBlue. You got those blue chips. If I woke up and I had missed the blue chips, I'd be very upset.
Gross.
No. All right. If you're asked by a fellow passenger to switch seats with him or her, so that he or she can sit with a family member or because they require some sort of special assistance, is it okay to refuse the request?
It's absolutely okay to refuse a request. I would, in the case of somebody who might need special assistance, I would definitely consider the request seriously.
Yeah.
If it involves me having to go from a window to a middle seat, then I would say, I'm sorry, I need a side seat because I have really long legs or whatever. And if they could find me an alternative to sit, yeah, of course, I would have no problem with it. I have seen people make radical assumptions, though, with this question.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I sit next to my wife? And the guy's like, I'm sitting next to my wife. It's
right.
It's
Absolutely.
like, why do you? It's very presumptuous to just assume that person doesn't have a reason that they're in that seat that they picked out and it's assigned to them.
I think it's very presumptuous. So I agree with you that if it is an aisle for an aisle for an aisle, that's great. Yeah. That's great. If it's an aisle for an aisle, if it's a middle seat for a middle seat, and especially if it's not, hugely further back in the plane. However, I have gotten this request several times, and it appears that people think that I'm a nice person or someone who looks like they would be nice.
Well, you probably already smiled at them, and you've asked them if the window's okay.
The inner rage that I feel when somebody asks me this question is beyond almost anything else we've discussed here. And it's particularly worse to ask this when you are looking at a flight that is over 6 hours, because the longer the flight, the more the seat choosing and placement has an effect on your happiness.
No doubt.
People don't ask other people to switch seats. And if they do, I agree with Ryan that you have the right to refuse, but you have to be comfortable sitting on a capsule with those people hating you for many, many hours.
So what's the what is the big number 10 question?
All right, the final question. This goes back to our: is it okay to speak to somebody on a plane? So say you've opened up that conversation because maybe a certain fellow passenger caught your eye. Is it ever okay to make out with somebody you've just met on a plane?
I mean, you need to get their
well, yeah. I mean, okay,
first.
all right. Let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
Is it okay to make out consensually with a person you just met on a plane? But think about the effect that's going to have on all the other people on the plane.
Well, that's not my business, is it?
No, that is your business.
I'm on the flight. They're on the flight. Everybody's on the flight together. They could be making friends too if they weren't so unappealing.
No, you are a monster if you think that is okay, especially if it's a window, a middle, and an aisle.
You can't make out with somebody over the middle seat. That's clearly wrong.
You are trapping somebody in your threesome who is not welcome into this interaction.
I don't think anyone should be making out, quote unquote, making out on a plane. Because that implies lovers lane 1960s Greece style.
So they're necking behind the tray table.
Making out is never appropriate in public.
Okay, this is an important distinction. Yeah. So you're saying a peck.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm gay, so we have a whole other scale, So, for yours, I would say the Catholic second base is fine. For the gays, I would say being at bat is fine.
You mean a quick hand job for in the sacristy?
That is not Catholic second base.
All right,
that's taking the Eucharist with your hands. We can
Catholic second base. That's funny. That's very funny. The reason for this question is because you and I both have a friend actually who decided to he made a contact with a fellow passenger. Fellow passenger was also interested in him as a passenger, and they had some chat, and then they had some makeout, and then our friend fell asleep on the plane, and he woke up to find the person he had kissed holding his hand.
No way.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my! I have never heard this story.
And that story has haunted me because
That's horrifying.
honestly, I don't know what was possessing the person to think I now have the right to hold this sleeping person's hand.
This is why I always wrap myself in the blanket like I'm a caterpillar. I am like, no one's getting through to me.
Oh my God. If we start to tackle the cleanliness and morality of the blanket and pillow, we will be here all day. So Ryan, I think we did a great job of investigating many subjects that are important that everybody who has ridden in a plane has to think about and face at nearly every flight. So I have no doubt we're going to revisit these on future episodes. But for now, let's take our PhDs in airplane etiquette and head off to the last stop.
The last stop?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
Now, Ryan, do you know what the last stop is?
The last stop is the best segment on the show because it means that we're coming to the end of our amazing journey, and that we're going to share some of the stuff that we've been thinking, reading, enjoying recently. That's ignited that spirit of wanderlust.
Yeah. There's a reason I do this. All right. So Ryan, the last stop is the last segment we have every week, and it's where you and I each talk about one thing that we've read or eaten or seen, something that we've done that feeds that spirit of wanderlust, keeps the spirit of travel alive within us through the workaday week.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
Ryan, I have to ask you, this week, do you have a last stop?
I do. My good friend Eric, who is a friend of the pod, listener to the show, just became members of the Tenement Museum, which is a museum in downtown New York. And invited me over the weekend to go on a tour there. And I've never been. I've always heard about it. And they have a series of different kind of tours all around sort of the Lower East Side. So focused on immigration to New York in the early days of New York. And the tour that we went on was a tour of these sort of apartment-based sweatshops that were run by immigrants to New York in the late 1800s, early 1900s,
and they were sweatshops run out of these tenement apartments.
Exactly, folks would have their family there. They would work. They would also bring in a few other people. So you basically have 10 or 12 people working in what would be a railroad apartment during the day, and then the family would be sleeping in it at night.
Wow!
And they've restored a couple of these apartments to look like they would have in the days actually in use, and then they actually have a few that have been left the way they were found in 1976.
Wow.
Totally sort of demolished, and those are sort of interesting too because you see on the walls. The walls are starting to kind of crack, and you just see different eras of wallpaper until you get to the very end of like the original sort of look of the place.
And is the whole museum built into a found tenement building?
Yeah, it's built around several tenement buildings that the museum owns and operates, and they do these different tours. And the one that I went on was focused on Jewish immigrants. There's an Irish experience that you and I should definitely go on, and there's a handful of other experiences. And some are more kind of geared towards families, so they have sort of maybe costumed actors.
It's funny you say that because that is something that has kept me away from this museum, even though I have heard it's quite amazing. I had heard that they sometimes have costume actors. Yeah. It sounded a little bit like Plymouth Plantation, and I just wasn't sure that was my vibe.
Yeah, we didn't. We had a super standard regular sort of tour guide who was deep historical knowledge of the families who lived there, and it wasn't kitschy at all. But I think that there are kitschier tours available. So just check on the website before you book your tour to make sure you're going to one that is suitable for the folks who are going. Another thing to definitely flag is they sell out every single tour. So you cannot show up that day and expect to go on a tour. You got to book your tour tickets in advance because, like I said, when I went on Saturday, every tour for the entire day was booked already. And, we went because we had those tickets prearranged.
So the members can go on a tour that's already booked out?
No, they had in advance booked the tickets. But if you're a member, you get to take extra people with you. So we were the guest. So
all right. So become friends with a member. And
that's always a good tip.
The last thing to highlight that I've always found interesting in this museum is the tours that they offer always have a major theme about them, and so they might focus in on, like you went on the sweatshops, or about certain experiences or families that lived there. So
Right, exactly.
you can really choose your experience in a way that you often can't in a history museum.
Yeah, and after seeing the first tour, going on this first tour, I only want to do the other tours. I can't wait. So it definitely got me interested.
Great.
And what is your last stop this week, Kieran?
So my last stop is Union Station in Denver. Do you know what Union
Denver.
Station is?
I've never been to the one in Denver. I've been to Union Station, of course, in Washington, D.C. many times.
Sure. It is a train station. I was heading to Denver for
You took a train to Denver?
Ryan.
That's long, Kieran.
Yeah, I took 8 weeks off of work. I took a train out, a train back. I was heading out to Denver to ski for a weekend, and somebody recommended to me, why don't you stay in Denver for a night, help you acclimate to the altitude. And also, Denver has recently been really investing in growing out this food hall culture.
Right.
So much like the sort of Chelsea market space in New York, they're opening up stands and smaller areas for lots of different food vendors to share their wares. And you can have ice cream, and you can all get everything you want and sit with your friends. And what they did was they took Union Station, which was kind of this old rundown train station. They kept the train service there, but they took the main body of this grand old building and they made it into sort of a multi-purpose restaurant and retail space. It's super cool. They described the ambition for it to be Denver's living room, and that's exactly what the Great Hall looked like. So a good example is they gutted out where the ticket booths used to be, and they made it into terminal bar. And so you go in, and it's all these kind of hip, young workers there drinking together. They've got a great kind of tapas restaurant, a great coffee shop. And I just thought it was a great way to revive an old building, but keep it intact and let young, small businesses come in and draw a crowd. So it took a transportation center and made it into a real destination.
That sounds fantastic. I've been to Denver a few times, and the food scene I've always been impressed with. There's really fun nightlife. It's a beautiful city. So, this is just another reason for me to go back.
Yeah, and they also have an outpost of the famous Denver bookstore, the Tattered Cover, which is quite lovely. So lots of great things to do in Union Station, and anytime I head out to Colorado, I plan on going back.
So what are we going to talk about next week, Kiernan?
So next week, we are going to talk about my favorite, lesser-known national parks.
My God. Look, if you know every single national park, so you could go really.
Do you want me to say them all right now? I'll say them all right now.
Nobody wants that. No.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of national parks, and the system is huge, and we all know the marquee ones. Everybody talks about the Grand Canyon and Glacier and Shenandoah. I'm going to take you a deep dive into the little-known national parks that you absolutely should visit if you don't want to have to fight the crowds.
And nobody wants crowds at their national parks. Well, until next week, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken.
That's not something you would say to somebody in the middle seat, though.
Hey, Ryan, can you just get up? I have to go to the bath. I know the light's on. Can I just, I need to just get out, please? Thanks. Just ding.